What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Dirty Bird Fly Through. Before we get started talking about this preview, make sure y'all hit the like button, make sure y'all subscribe, make sure you turn on the post notification bell. Support in whatever way possible is greatly appreciated, no matter how you do it. Also, my ex DB Fly Through. You can give me a follow on X to keep in touch with me personally, and also some of the stuff that I post over on X, as I am going to definitely be expanding this platform, and that is what I hope to do. And I hope that you all will join me for this crazy ride that's going to be this 2025 season and beyond. And today we're going to be previewing the very important Week 1 matchup the Falcons have versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think before we get started, it's really worth noting that Week 1, of course, brings an excitement. It brings a new feeling to a season. But this is so important heading into this Week 1 because this is the team that I think everyone knows we're going to have to go through to get into the playoffs. If we want to get back to the playoffs for the first time since 2017, this is a team that we're going to have to beat. We're going to have to take care of business against. And Week 1 is absolutely going to set the tone for what this season could be, which is why it is very important that you do come out and you want to start off 1-0. So, taking a look at both of these teams, starting off with the Falcons, last year they had, I think, needless to say, a very up and down year. It was a tale of two seasons. They started off 6-3. Six of those wins in the first 9 weeks, two of them coming against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were leading the NFC South. It looked like they were well on their way to the playoffs, but then the season collapsed. A 4-game losing streak. We end the year off 8-9. Michael Penix comes in at quarterback at the end of the season. He shows a lot of promise. That is why he is our guy going forward. We have the confidence in him. But at the end of the day, the Falcons still had a very sour end to the season. This offseason, they really kind of went low-key in free agency. They didn't make any big splash signing other than signing Leonard Floyd away from the LA Rams and a couple other signings here and there. But where the Falcons really went to work this offseason was on draft night. Drafting Jalen Walker 15th overall and then trading back up into the first round to get James Pierce Jr. in a trade with the Los Angeles Rams. They also picked up safety Xavier Watts on day 2, and they picked up slot corner Billy Bowman Jr. on day 3. And the Falcons enter 2025 really with a plethora of young guys that you are looking to see something from, that you are looking to step up. Longtime defensive starter Grady Jarrett left this offseason for Chicago, so that also opens a hole not just in on the field action but also presence in the locker room. Really looking for someone to step up. So still some familiar faces, but it is a team that has gotten younger this offseason. As far as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go, they are the reigning 4-time NFC South Division champions. Ever since Tom Brady went to Tampa in 2020, they went from being really the laughingstock of the NFC South to ruling the NFC South. They've won 4 straight division titles, and ever since Baker Mayfield came over to Tampa, he has really revitalized his career. The Buccaneers have seen 2 amazing seasons under Mayfield. Last year in particular, he threw for 41 touchdowns, 4,000 yards. The Buccaneers had one of the top offenses in the NFL under offensive coordinator Liam Cohen, who is now gone as he is head coach in Jacksonville. So once again, a new offensive coordinator in Tampa week 1. But this is a team that is no stranger to these types of games. And if the Falcons, I'm gonna say it again, if the Falcons want to actually prove that they can be a viable team, you're gonna have to win a big game versus Tampa, whether it's here or whether it is the Thursday night primetime game late in the year down there. It's going to take getting a very big win versus the Buccaneers again for the Falcons to be able to really contend for that NFC South crown in 2025. So, taking a look at the injury report, and both these teams, for this being a week one contest, are considerably beaten up heading into it. Looking at it for the Falcons side of things, it's not as thick as it is for Tampa. I think the most notable name is definitely wide receiver Darnell Mooney, who was limited in practice all week, is a game time decision for Sunday. Now, the feeling that I got listening to him speak and also listening to Raheem Morris is that if Darnell Mooney had to go, he can go. So it's really, I think, a matter of, do you want to take that risk in week one so early in the year? But this is a very big game. And Darnell Mooney, in both games versus Tampa last year, he had some big plays. He had some touchdowns, and he was a contributor in both of those wins. So, and even though we didn't see a lot of him and Michael Penix, we still saw in the little bit that we saw Penix throwing the ball to Mooney, we saw a connection building just like it did with Drake London over the course of those last 3 games. So I definitely think you would prefer to have Darnell Mooney out there, who is your surefire wide receiver 2, one of the top options in this offense. Cornerback Clark Phillips, he was dealing with a rib injury, started off the week limited, but today he was fully practicing. Seems like he's good to go for Sunday. And then safety DeMarco Helms and rookie tackle Jack Nelson are both ruled out on Sunday. As far as Tampa goes, there's a lot more notable names. Obviously, wide receiver Chris Godwin and tackle Tristan Wirfs, they have been dealing with injuries all offseason. They are both out. Christian Izine with an oblique injury, he is out. He did not practice any this week. Benjamin Morrison, their rookie corner, is out. And probably, I think the biggest name still in question for Tampa is without a doubt Vita Vea. He did not practice Wednesday. He didn't practice Thursday, but he returned to practice on Friday, and he is ruled as questionable for Sunday's matchup. So I think you gotta believe that Tampa is going to want Vita Vea out there because he is the centerpiece of that Buccaneers defense and what they can do. If you take Vita Vea out of the situation, I think it changes a lot. So it's definitely, I think, going to come down to a game time decision. And regardless of whether Vita Vea is out there or not, you got to be prepared to really match a game plan that Todd Bowles is going to draw up for this defense. Now, one of the big developments that came out of the later parts of training camp was obviously the injury to Caleb McGarry. Caleb McGarry is now out for the entire season. Storm Norton also is out until around the bye week or so. So that leaves veteran offensive lineman Elijah Wilkinson suddenly playing maybe the second most important position on the entire team for the Atlanta Falcons. That is right tackle, which is also the blind side for Michael Penix, and also a very critical position in the running game. As we all know, it's been Chris Lyncham and Caleb McGarry for years that have been the engines of this running attack, have been able to get Bijan Robinson going, have been able to get Tyler Algier going. They're the guys up front. And now Elijah Wilkinson, who really has never found a groove in the NFL, he's been on and off this Falcons team for a couple of years, is out in a really important position. But you know what they say, it is a next man up sport. And Michael Penix sounds confident in Elijah Wilkinson. Bijan Robinson sounds confident in Elijah Wilkinson. Raheem Morris has put his confidence into Elijah Wilkinson. So Elijah Wilkinson, he has the support of his team, but he has a lot to prove, and he is playing a very, very, very critical role in however many games he starts at right tackle. So we're going to have to see some of the best football of this young man's career. And I am going to say that I feel like with Delane Ledford, the Falcons offensive line coach, he is one of the best in the league. So it makes me a little more confident. But at the end of the day, this is a guy who's been in the league for several years, and this is the most important spot that he has been in. So you're going to have to see him show up. But it is a next man up sport. And no matter how big the injury is, there is a guy behind him, and that guy has to step up to the occasion, and he has to play to the level. This is why we talk about building out your teams, drafting well, having quality free agent signings, even if they aren't the biggest names, because you want to be able to build that depth. And this is going to test how strong the Falcons' depth truly is on Sunday, and however long Elijah Wilkinson is out there starting at the blindside tackle position. Now, as far as the Tampa side of things go, kind of touched on this when talking about the injury report. They are dealing with some very big injury concerns. Wide receiver Chris Godwin and tackle Tristan Wirfs, who is also their blindside tackle and maybe the best tackle in the entire National Football League. They are both out on Sunday. Vita Vea is questionable. It sounds like he's a game-time decision. But even if Vita Vea plays, he's not necessarily going to be 100%, I think, as we know. So the Bucs are really coming into this game beaten up, and Tampa was beaten up headed into both of the games versus us last year. And that, you can honestly say, is a lot of the reason why we were able to take advantage and get the 2 wins versus them. Now, you never want to beat a team at 50%. You always want to beat a team at their best. But at the same time, when a team is dealing with weaknesses and you have guys out, at the end of the day, you have no choice but to take advantage of that and exploit it. Chris Godwin being out is going to leave a spot for the Buccaneers that they need someone to step up, and they're going to be looking at rookie wide receiver Emeka Ibuka to step up. Mike Evans is obviously still there, who we all know who Mike Evans is at this point. As far as their tackle position goes, I feel like that is definitely a spot that the Falcons could be able to exploit, especially with some of the youth that they have that we're also getting ready to talk about here in just a second. But for the Bucs, just like the Falcons, really both teams dealing with some big injury concerns. So it's really going to come down to who can ride the ship and ride out that storm on Sunday. Now, I was just talking about the rookies a second ago. We're going to talk about them here. The Falcons are going to have 4 rookies out there on Sunday on the defensive side of the ball, either starting or playing a major role in this game. Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman Jr. are both starters in the secondary, and even though Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. are not listed as starters on the depth chart, we're going to be seeing plenty of them. And I was just talking about Tristan Wirfs being out for Tampa. This is where you could see that potential rookie impact play into the hands of the Falcons. Because I got a feeling that we are going to see either Pierce or Walker get back to Baker Mayfield at least once on Sunday. Now, at the same time, I don't want to put pressure on any of these guys, and I think it's important to remember that they are rookies. No matter where they are drafted, they're playing their very first real game in the NFL, and they're going to take lumps throughout their rookie season. We're going to see ups, we're going to see downs. We're probably going to see Tampa try to exploit the fact that we got these four rookies. Baker Mayfield is a really good quarterback, and even though they are beaten up front, he is still, with his presence and Mike Evans, Tampa still has guys out there. And I'm willing to bet that Baker Mayfield is going to try to test Billy Bowman, going to try to test Xavier Watts. We may see him try to take a few deep shots. That is why it definitely helps a guy like Xavier Watts when the best safety in the NFL, Jesse Bates, is right beside him. So if you don't see the impact from these guys immediately, it's okay. If you don't see Jalen Walker and James Pierce both getting 2 sacks on Sunday, if you don't see Xavier Watts getting that big interception, you don't see Billy Bowman getting that big interception, it's okay. These guys are going to get better, but I can tell you this right now. I would much rather have these young guys out here actually learning and playing than seeing a Deron Harmon or an Eric Harris or a Fabian Moreau, or I could go on and on about guys that we have seen that are just washed up that the Falcons just nitpick off the streets. These are actually guys with potential. These are guys that are going to grow. And at the same time, these are guys that are all worth something. These are, for Xavier Watts, for Billy Bowman, these are guys I honestly probably shouldn't have made it as far as they did down the draft board. James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker also should not have been there when they were there. So the Falcons, they got some steals in the draft. We're going to see how good they are coming out the stretch. If we don't see the big plays immediately, that's fine. But I also got a feeling with the injuries that Tampa has on the offensive line, we're going to see either Pierce or Walker get back there at least a couple times, at least once on Sunday. And talking about these rookie defenders, talking about the defense getting younger. This game, we are going to see a Falcons team trying to establish an identity under new defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. Because it's not just the rookies, it's also guys like Ruccaroro, Zach Harrison, Brandon Dorless, the second, third year guys who the Falcons have really, for the past few years, it feels like been grooming or haven't been high up on the depth chart because obviously we still had a Grady Jarrett here. We still have David Onyemata here, but you're not necessarily going to be relying on David Onyemata to make that big impact. You are looking at these younger guys. You're looking at the Auroros. You're looking at the Dorleses, the Harrisons. This is where you're really going to try to establish an identity on Sunday. It's going to be interesting to see how the Falcons attack the Buccaneers. We've heard Jeff Ulbrich, we've heard Nate Ollie talk about this attack style defense where they're going to rush for it and they're just going to let these guys go straight at the quarterback. That could spell trouble for Tampa on Sunday with the offensive line injuries, but at the same time, that's going to open up a lot of space for a guy like Mike Evans, for instance, or Emeka Ibuka, who the Bucs are really looking to step up, or Cade Otton, who not a lot of people talk about, but is a solid tight end. So it's going to be all about that balance. The Falcons are going to be playing a lot more man this year, so Terrell Island is going to have to be open on Sunday. We're going to have to see A.J. Terrell out there giving Mike Evans the work. We're going to have to see the Falcons taking care of the rookie Emeka Ibuka. I really think that you are going to try to see Tampa attack the middle of the field. I think that you're going to see them with their new offensive coordinator trying to keep things basic. I wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of play action early. You may also see them try to get Bucky Irving in that running game going. And this is where the Falcons are going to have to start establishing that identity on defense of attacking, of coming up with those big stops. Everything that Jeff Ulbrich has said, it's all nice and well, but it's time to actually see some action with it. Looking around the NFC South, some of these other teams that are playing, obviously the Bucs are coming here, the very important game that I do believe coming down to it, we're going to look back on this game and say this was one of those pivotal games in the division race. But also looking at the two other teams in this division, the Carolina Panthers are heading down to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars on Sunday, and I think it's an interesting game. I actually think the Panthers could win it. I think we did see that Carolina team build a lot of momentum at the end of last season, so it's going to be interesting if they can carry any of it into the start of this season. Jacksonville has a new head coach, new offensive system, all that. So I wouldn't be shocked if Carolina won that game. And then the Saints are in the Superdome on Sunday to start the season versus the Arizona Cardinals. Now it is week one, and it feels like week one, anything could happen. But I'm still going to go out and say I think Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are absolutely going to smoke the Saints because the Saints absolutely suck. Moving on to the player to watch for the Falcons on Sunday, and there were a lot of guys I could have chose from, but it's Drake London. Drake London, whenever he is at home versus Tampa Bay, always seems to have a big game, always seems to go over 100 yards. We saw the chemistry building with Michael Penix at the end of last year. They are both lefties. They both have a lot to bond over, and they've been putting that work in over the offseason. So I think Drake London, there's a lot of guys you could choose from. Obviously, Bijan, maybe a guy on defense. Of course, we could look at our quarterback, Michael Penix. But Drake London and getting him going, it feels like one of the most simple things that could happen. And sometimes you just got to keep it simple. You got to go with the guy that you can rely on. And in this spot, week one versus Tampa, I think that we're definitely going to see a lot of Drake London. We're going to see him get the ball, get those opportunities early. Tampa really has not done that much to improve the secondary this offseason. So it's pretty much the same secondary as the one Kirk Cousins threw for 500 yards against the last time these two teams played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So we're going to see Drake London get those opportunities. As far as the guy to look for on Tampa, there were a lot of guys that you could have chose from. But once again, you got to keep it simple. It is Mike Evans. This guy, you got to give credit to him because he's never been the top wide receiver any year, but he has started his career with 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and even well into his 30s, he's not showing signs of slowing down. Maybe this is the year, but you can never bank on it. So as I said, Terrell Island is going to have to be open for business for number 13 on Sunday. You got to take care of Mike Evans because doing that, I think it's definitely going to take the biggest threat, obviously, in this Buccaneers offense still out of the equation, and then it's going to put more pressure on a guy like Emeka Ibuka, who is a good wide receiver. But once again, you can never bank on a rookie to come in and be a difference maker. You're going to have other guys step up. So you got to lock Mike Evans down. You always got to look out for him out there on the field. Moving into the keys of victory, the 3 keys to victory that I have, and the number 1 key to victory, it feels like one you almost always say, you got to generate pressure. You got to generate pressure against Baker Mayfield, and you also have to wrap up on those tackles because you shouldn't even have to say this, but last year and so many other years, we have seen the Falcons struggle to get guys on the ground because they're trying to tackle the cute way. No, you wrap them up, you get them on the ground, and that's what you got to do on Sunday. You got to generate pressure because this is a new offensive coordinator. Once again, this is a first-time offensive coordinator for Tampa. And even though we saw Dave Canales have success with them in 2023 after just 1 year, and we saw Liam Cohen do it last year, it's going to be very hard to ask a third straight offensive coordinator to come in and have that type of impact early. And you really haven't seen that impact early either. Tampa is typically a slow start team. I mean, in 2023 they started 4-7, and last year they started 4-6. Now, Tampa the first few weeks I will say has had good success, but at the same time Tampa really hasn't had a game this big the first few weeks either. So, just like we talk about, a big game for the Falcons. It's a big game for Tampa, and they know, even though they won the division, that we got them twice last year, and that's definitely on their mind. So we got to come in, we got to generate pressure, we got to get some pressure from the interior. That's why I say it's not just you cannot just rely on Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. Arnold Ebiketie, that's going to have to be a guy we see step up on Sunday. Leonard Floyd, our free agency signing, we're going to have to see him step up as that veteran presence. So it's really all got to come together for this game. You're going to have to see multiple guys. You're going to have to see everyone back there getting it. And you're going to have opportunities with Tristan Wirfs being out of the lineup. But you got to get that pressure, because that is where you derail their game plan. The second key to victory has to be setting up the run. And with the health uncertainty of Vita Vea, I feel like that makes it a little easier here. But you got to set up the run to be able to create those big plays we could see from Penix's arm later on in the game. Tampa is a very aggressive defense, and they're going to try to put some pressure on Penix come Sunday. So you got to really take that pressure off with getting Bijan going early. And that's why I say it's going to be a big spot for Elijah Wilkinson. You're going to have to open up those lanes. You're going to have to let Bijan get loose. Therefore, you're going to be able to set up those big plays that we could see to Drake London, maybe to Kyle Pitts, maybe to Darnell Mooney if he's playing, but Drake in particular, as he is the player to watch. But Bijan's just going to be as much of a key to it as everything else. You got to get that running game going. You also got to get Tyler Algier going in this game. It's got to be a well-oiled machine on offense. That's what it's going to come down to, is really establishing that balance in this game. You can never expect your quarterback to go out and throw for 500 yards versus a team like we saw out of Kirk last year. And at the end of the day, this is still Penix's fourth start in the NFL. So he is still, I mean, many would still consider him a rookie, and that's absolutely fair. That's why you got to get this running game going to be able to set up some of those bigger plays that could come during the course of the game. And the third key to victory, and I feel like this is probably going to be the most important one, is going to be taking control of the game late. Because we've seen it a lot. We've seen the Falcons let games slip away from them that they have had a big score up on, but they just lost control. This is going to be a type of game that you got to take control of the game late. And that's why I say, I definitely think you start off with Bijan. You definitely try to rip off some of those big runs. But later on, as the defense wears out, you bring Tyler Algier in and you let him just pound that rock. Especially if the Falcons are in a situation where it's a close game late and you got to wrap up a victory. You got to get control of the game late, because that's what this game is going to come down to. It's going to come down to whoever makes a big play late or whoever has control of the game late. So that is what you're going to have to need. Tampa, I feel like, is going to have an issue taking control of the game because of the injuries and the new offensive coordinator. Zach Robinson's been our offensive coordinator a full year. And even though as I say, we haven't seen a lot of Penix, we have still seen a little bit of Penix. They have been working together all season. You got to take control of this game late if you want to win it. So, going into the final predictions and really just summing everything up, I think it's obviously going to be a close game. I don't think that you could say one team is going to blow the other out. These games are always close versus Tampa, and that is what big playoff esque like games. And I'm gonna say it. This is only week one, but this is almost in a way like a playoff game because when it comes down to it, this will be a game you're looking back on when you see whether we made the playoffs or we didn't. So, in the end, after everything that I have said, I think the Falcons are going to win. No one else pretty much thinks it. They are big underdogs in this game, but I think the Falcons are going to win. I think that we are going to see a team that, and yes, they're gonna look a little rusty. Every team does week one. We saw it even last night with the Cowboys and the Eagles. Those two teams, they looked rusty. But we're going to see, I think, a Falcons team that, even though, yes, they haven't played together since January in a real game, all the starters, we're going to see a team that at home, and I'm going to say I didn't put in the keys to victory. This is a call. If you're going to that game on Sunday, you're going to that stadium. You have to make an impact on this game. This is a game to get into. This is not a game to be fooling around with, being late to your seat, getting up and walking around during the game, being on your phone texting people during the game. No, this is the game to get up and make an impact on. I know the Seahawks always talk about the 12th man, being the 12th man for that defense out there, because they're going to need it. They're going to need the support. We're going to have to create a home field advantage in this game. I want to see it on Sunday. But it's just a Falcons team that I think, really with the circumstances, they're going to be in a much better position to take control of this game. Whereas with the Bucs, I just think they're going to struggle to really take control of the game and establish control. I think you're going to see flashes from Tampa. You always do. But I think it's going to be one, when it comes down to it, you're just going to struggle to see this Bucs team really putting it together. Obviously, this could end up being a high-scoring game, but 24-19 Falcons is about where I think it's going to go. I don't see it being a high-scoring shootout, obviously considering that it is week one. But I still think that you're going to have to see, it's going to be all about the team that can make more big plays and can take control late. At the end of the day, with the Falcons being at home, with them having less injuries than the Buccaneers, not to say that we're beaten up, obviously we are, but still having more of our guys together, I think you got to give the edge to the Falcons here in week one. But appreciate everyone for watching. Football is back. The season, we're so close. Sunday cannot get here soon enough. And I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Remember to like. Remember to subscribe. Remember to share it out. And thank you everyone for watching.